So Psycho Holocaust was first presented to me back in, I guess, 2005. We were supposed to shoot it back then. We were going to shoot it in North Carolina, and some things fell through, so we ended up having to put it on hold for a little while and ended up shooting it in 2007 in Wisconsin, which actually I think was absolutely perfect, the perfect setting for the story. It just energetically felt very good there. I don't know that we could have told the story as well in North Carolina. It just felt right in Wisconsin. So we shot in this little town called Clintonville, a really, really small town, cute town. Everybody was very, very nice. Great experience. The interesting thing was we shot this in October, and the first day it was 90 degrees. It was really hot, and it stayed pretty warm most of the shoot. However, the second to the last day, it snowed. Yes, it actually snowed, and of course that was the day that my character had to get into the pond. So that actually turned out to be okay because the pond was warmer than the air. However, it wasn't until after we shot that scene that I was made privy to the fact that it was a leech-infested pond. Fortunately, I didn't get any leeches on me, or somebody would have died, Christ. But I'll never get in another pond ever again. Towards the end, once my character comes out of the pond, you will see that like my arms are glued to my side. And while it worked for that scene because my character is supposed to be kind of zombified out of it, you know, out of her mind, actually my arms were glued to my side because I was so cold I could not stop shaking. And I actually felt like I was having convulsions at one point because I think I was pretty close to hypothermia. Fortunately, Chris, being the sweetheart that he was, let me use his big jacket in between takes, which I imagine that jacket had to stink afterwards from the pond. But he was very sweet and kind to do that. He's just lucky there was no leeches. While Clintonville is very pretty, I also believe it's the portal to hell because I've never seen so many flies in all of my life. We shot on this horse farm, which I guess is why there were so many flies, but it's like the first day there was, you know, about 20 flies in the trailer. And the day after that, there was about 50 flies. And the third day, I think there was probably 2,000 flies in the trailer. And they basically took over the trailer, and we stayed outside and let the flies have the trailer because there was just so many of them. It was nasty and disgusting. I remember at one point, Trent was sitting in a chair outside, and he had fallen asleep. And there was flies not just swarming around him, they were sitting on him. And it just reminded me of those old what's her name, Sally Struthers commercial, was that her name? Sally Struthers, where you'd see the children in Africa starving and they've got flies that are just sitting on them and they're oblivious, and that's what Trent reminded me of. Absolutely loved working with Trent Haga. I also loved working with Don Prentice. I loved working with everyone, but I got to tell you, those two are just so talented and they commit so much to their characters. They give you a lot to work off of, and I felt like they drew for me a better performance than I could have imagined I would have given. I was very comfortable with them. Trent stays in his character, and I mean, he's so intense, you see it in his eyes, and it's even in between the takes, he's still there. Even though he may come down a little bit intense-wise, he's still in that character that you almost wonder if he's really that way in true life. Shut up! So one of the most intense scenes I had was Laura's rape scene, and I actually did that scene with Don Prentice, another reason why he's one of my favorite people to work with. But when I first read the scene, I was obviously a bit concerned because you have to go as an actor to a very raw place to do a scene like that. And I'm not method, so I didn't go out and like actually get raped to know what that feels like. But you can still tap into things that have happened to you. I guess you just think of, you know, what would your worst nightmare be? And for most women, that is their worst nightmare. And if you combine that with, you know, things from the past that maybe you felt very betrayed and all of that. So, I mean, it's a very raw and dark place you have to go to. And it's scary too, because you want to be able to trust the person that you're playing opposite of. And even though they're not really physically harming you, it's still very intimate and not in a good way. You're not always sure how you're going to feel about that person after a scene like that. Fortunately, I had worked with Don before, and so I did have a lot of trust for him, but it was a rough scene to do. I actually think he had a harder time with the scene than I did, because I did trust him so much. When we were done, I was done with it. I could put it away, but he felt very bad about anything he had to do in that scene, and I think that spoke volumes of who he is as a person. He didn't want to hurt me. I think he was afraid that it was a little emotionally scarring for me. I think it was scarring for him. And then from what I heard, people on the set and the crew, they kind of had difficulty watching the scene being filmed. They felt it was a little too real. The cabin, the lovely little cabin that sleeps one person, but somehow we were 6 people to sleep in the cabin. It was the cutest thing. It was really tiny. I don't know what I can say about the cabin. It was quaint. It was warm when it was snowing. It was interesting because you came in, that was the kitchen, and then next to it was the little living room, and you actually had to climb a ladder up to, I guess, a loft bedroom. It was too small of a cabin to have a staircase, so it really was just like this wooden ladder that it didn't move. It was permanent, but it was like climbing into a bunk bed. The upstairs, it was like a bunk bed. I mean, it was a big enough room, but it was a bunk bed ladder to climb up there.
You want to say action?
So I got to work with Rain Brown, had never worked with her before, had heard about her. I know she's got a huge fan base, people love her, and after meeting her, I see why people love her. I mean, we just had such a great time. We really hit it off, love at first sight. We had the same sense of humor. We had a lot of fun. She's a very unique person, very funny person, very intelligent person, full of energy, just super, super sweet. Every day we'd have a different song of the day that we would drive everybody crazy with and sing. I can't remember what any of those songs are now. I know Justin Timberlake was on the list for a while there. But we just had so much fun. I think we might have driven some people a little nuts, but she's just a blast, and she's such a doll.
Which way? Which way?
One of the really interesting dynamics in Psycho-Holocaust is the relationship between Laura and Talina. Usually in movies you have one very strong heroine and then you have, her sidekick. And when the movie first starts, obviously Talina is that heroine character. She's the mother, she's nurturing, and then there's Laura, her best friend, who's feeling a little insecure about Talina being married and having a family, and she's starting to feel left out. So initially you feel like, oh, well, Talina's the strong one, Laura's, she's the weak little friend, and you have expectations of, oh, Laura's going to be killed off, or, whatever. But what's really neat is you really see what friendship is about, because when Talina is weak, Laura rises up and becomes the strong one. And when Laura has her weak moments, Talina is the one who rises up and is the strong friend. And I think that's how true friendships work, is you fill each other's weaknesses. And I thought that was one of the coolest dynamics with the relationships in the film.
Get the fuck away from us!
So, Christopher Ruffty, what can I say? I've worked with him quite a few times. First time I ever worked with him was Cutting Room. And we've done Cutting Room, we've done Little Demon, we've done a trailer for Desolation, Psycho-Holocaust, Wickedwood, and recently we did Rags, and we're gearing up for another project. But I love working with him. He's always professional, and he's a great friend, and he's making me do this. Help me, please. Well, also it didn't make sense to me that they pulled over and wanted to go help dig out bodies. I'm like, what person really wants to do that? I'm watching the movie going, these people are idiots. They should all die. I hope they die soon.